Okay, well, welcome everyone. It is great to see you, and welcome to an independent sponsor news webinar in partnership with BluWave. And for those who don't yet know what BluWave is, which is unlikely, it's your market network that connects private equity investors with the best of the best value creation capabilities. It's a genuine one-stop shop, and as a user, I'm delighted that Sean, who joins us today, created it in the first place. Every webinar invite you get in your inbox right now has AI in the title. Most of them, an hour of predictions you probably could have got from a podcast. But the conversations we keep having as ISN with independent sponsors, they aren't about predictions. They're about where on earth to start. So that is the entire session today. We're going to give you 4 things you can actually do starting this week with a live demo so you can see it working rather than taking someone else's word for it. It's going to be the practical stuff that moves the dial for you guys. And this is tried and tested. I've already talked through this with Sean and James once before. I found it wildly valuable. I think you guys will too. And I guess the question is why? Why is it so important? As business building investors, we all now have the tools to operate much more like quantitative private equity firms, a little bit like the hedge funds that have been the best performers of old, using data and insights and layering those insights over the top to create the right actions, never missing a beat and never getting a surprise from human error. It's so powerful. And believe it or not, it's easier for independent sponsors and smaller businesses to do this stuff than it is for a Blackstone. Because we're smaller, we're nimbler, we can put companies onto ERPs and HRIS systems much quicker. We can unify and create a data strategy so much faster than a big company can. And today, bringing this to us, we've got 2 people who genuinely know this stuff. Sean Mooney, who I will welcome shortly, spent 20 years in private equity as an investor. Most recently, he was a partner on the investment committee at SFW Capital Partners, and he started this to solve his own problem. He founded BluWave to solve a problem with he had lived with his whole career. How do you find that expert? How do you find them fast? And when a deal or portfolio company really needs something, where do you go? He built the tool he wished he'd always had. And today it connects more than 500 PE firms and 1,700 portfolio companies. It's the proof is in the numbers. And James Allward is BluWave's Chief Product and Technology Officer. And his CV, also extensive, reads a little bit like a tour of the last 15 years of applied technology. Uh, God knows how Sean found him, but I know he's delighted that he did. James founded the AI incubator at Fidelity, was the Chief Product Officer at Teachers Pay Teachers, where he helped build one of the largest peer-to-peer marketplaces in America. And he's scaled product organizations across fintech, across SaaS, across education. And when it comes to actually making AI work inside a business, he's been doing it way before we knew what AI actually stood for. So with that, I'm going to hand over to the experts, but stick around to the end. And at the end, BluWave has got a couple of parting gifts for everyone on the webinar. Thank you for joining us, guys, and we look forward to the Q&A in not too long. Over to you, Sean, James.
Great, Sam. Thank you very much. It's a privilege to partner here with you, and the respect is absolutely mutual in terms of what you're bringing for the independent sponsor world. And so, as we jump in here today, I thought what would be helpful is just give you an advance look into where we're going to go through this session here together. And so, first, what we're going to do is we're going to talk a very small about a bit about who we are, what we do, and what we're seeing in AI, and which is going to inform everything else we talk about. From that, we're going to talk about 4 things that every one of you all in your portfolio companies can do to practically and actionably unlock value. Then we're going to give you a demo. Here's how it actually works. Here's some of the things that within the 4 that we're doing right now at BluWave and equipping throughout, literally hundreds and hundreds of other PE firms right now in their portcos. And then last, we'll finish up with some questions. And then we have a couple gifts for everyone here that joins. So if that sounds like a good plan, let's move into the next slide here. So maybe to set like, why are we here? So we're very much like a lot of your portfolio companies. I was one of you. And so I was in most of my career, I was in the PE industry. About 10 years ago, I founded BluWave as Sam shared to solve my own problem. But really, the same things that we're going through now are just like most of your portfolio companies are probably experiencing right now. So we're PE backed. We're a lower middle market firm. We have around 75 employees. So we're facing similar constraints, people challenges, data messes, governance worries. Everything that we're going to talk about here are the same things that we're doing at BluWave with the similar constraints. And we're actually enabling with other PE firms and other independent sponsors and other lower middle market portfolio companies. So all of this, take in mind, is actionable for your companies and for you to steward within them. Okay, so what are we seeing now? And as Sam shared, we're this kind of hyper intelligence B2B network. We're this super connector. We're the backbone for the private equity industry. We have thousands of calls each time from people just like you, and it ranges from independent sponsors all the way up to the largest cap firms. Most of the firms we're working with are going to be lower and middle market firms. And so take in mind the data that we're going to share is going to be highly actionable for everyone on this call, particularly your portfolio companies. What we're seeing right now in our data, and if you think about our data, we are a mirror reflection of what PE does. We understand what the best business builders in the world are doing, where they're doing it, why they're doing it, how it's changing over time, because they come to us to equip them with the tools to solve these challenges and opportunities. What we're seeing right now, and you'll see this in a quarterly report that we give to everyone, you can access that and literally probably within the next week. We're seeing all-time highest activity right now in value creation. 80% plus right now. Everything PE is doing is on the portfolio company side. Some of that has to do with the deal market, but most of it has to do with the reality of creating value within your portfolio companies. Within that data of the broader set of activity, we've seen a 240% increase in demand for AI enablement services. That's a massive spike that we have never seen before. And so what this means and what we'll go over time and time again is your peers and your portfolio company competitors are running towards this. And so view this as a mandate in terms of not only to see things that we're similarly equipping with your competitors and your peers right now, but things that you can do right now. And if you don't do it, just know that your competitors are. And I don't mean to be dramatic, but it's the truth. And so let's go on to the next step with that kind of framing here. We're going to talk about 4 things that every single one of your companies, and I encourage you as independent sponsors or any firm that's here as an investor, don't only think about this as a lens into what your portfolio companies should do. Think of your business of private equity as a business. And so view this through the same lens as your PE firm itself. And all these things that your portcos can do, you can do too. And so the 4 things that we're going to talk about are large language model adoption. So that's an acronym that just means Claude, ChatGPT, Grok, Perplexity, all the big language models that are out there today. Establish a data foundation. This is the unsexy, but the absolutely essential part to taking this as far as you can and need and should go. Putting in AI tools that are off the shelf right now and developing AI tools that you'll be able to develop once you have foundations in place. And then underlying all of this, there's a foundation of governance. And that is essentially important also, and not a fun part, but something that is critical to getting this right. So with that in mind, let's jump into kind of the meat of our conversation here. So James, you want to kick us off and just talk about large language model adoption? What does it mean? How do you get it done? How do you enable it?
Yeah, but first I want to say data foundation's exciting to me, Sean. So it depends who you are. So yeah, the first thing to do in any company really is to roll out an LLM. So pick Claude or ChatGPT and make sure you're using the Teams or enterprise plan so that Claude or ChatGPT isn't training your data and you can share data internally easily. But just get rolling on an LLM. Roll it out to everyone in the company. Have a company-wide Claude or ChatGPT, and you'll start to see people tap into the sum total of human knowledge that's represented within those tools. Um, After that, do some training for your team. Everybody in the company should be familiar with the AI tools, how to use them effectively. And one of the best ways to do that is to ask Claude or ChatGPT to set up a training program bespoke to you. That's what we all did at BluWave. Everybody's gone through a Claude training and has a Anthropic 101 certificate through it. And everybody has, brought on these superpowers and new colors on their palette for which to help the business go forward. And it really gets exciting when you start to connect your data. So it's one thing for Claude or ChatGPT to be able to, look at an email and make sure you've written it the right way. It's amazing when it starts to be able to bring in the actual specifics of an account you might be working with or the financial data you're working through. So it gets really exciting when you get to connect your data to your private LLMs in your company-wide instance and have everybody have gone through the training so they know how to use it. That can be done very quickly. So start here and get moving.
Right. What I would say, if I'll give some color commentary from the CEO lens and also the private equity lens, my former self. So the large language models, it's amazing how capable they are. The models just in the last 3 months have made a step function jump in capability. Play with Fable if you haven't. It's unbelievable. I think you have to be agile on these models, though. Like we at BluWave, we have standardized on Claude. We used to offer Claude and ChatGPT by team. We decided to go with one or the other, and we all decided with Claude, and we're building ecosystem around Claude. The other thing, though, I will tell you, we're all kind of looking over our shoulders for the future rug pull. For those of you who are around in the late 90s, everything was amazingly cheap and given away until it wasn't. And so just be aware that eventually this stuff's going to cost more money, but enjoy it while it's good. And so, every one of these subscriptions probably costs them 5 times more to provide it to you than they charge you for it. So just be aware of that. So I personally stay up to speed on both Claude and ChatGPT because it's an arm race and they're amazingly commoditized versus each other. But there is value to standardization. Just be aware that you got to be agile. The project-based training is another great point that James said. Like if you're going to have people watch, 8 hours of Udemy videos where it's like going to, driver's ed from the DMV when you get caught for a speeding ticket. It's only happened to me like 4 times. And so, but it's the worst experience ever. And so what James is saying is like, give them projects where you like, almost like what you would give them as a test case for their job when you hired them. Have them go through that project case within the large language model and they see how it works. Amazing thing happens. And then the connecting to your data, we'll get more into that, but then it becomes Jarvis, if you think the Iron Man movie. So we'll go more into that, but that's just kind of my 2 cents on these points that I think, adds a little bit to the conversation here. So speaking of data, James, why is data important? What do you do to make it happen?
Yeah, so you need to be able to harness your data to the best of the ability, make it available through LLMs across the company. I mean, data's always been important, but it's often been served through dashboards and other data pulls from analytics groups within a company. This makes it so much easier. So first step in data foundation is to set up a warehouse or at least identify the right systems where your crucial data is and work out how to ingest that through chat GPT or Claude or whatever system you want to use. Um, Elements of that are really straightforward and it's a lot easier than you think. What you might want to do if you have a lot of different data sets is bring on a modern data warehouse like Snowflake or Databricks. And into Snowflake, we use Snowflake here at BluWave, and you can bring in the crucial data from an ERP system or a CRM or frankly, just emails or spreadsheets that are lying around too. Having that accessible at your fingertips is amazing when this gets into your company-wide LLM. So any crucial data sets, work out how to connect those with with a ChatGPT or a Claude. The next step there in data foundation is semantic layer. So semantic layer is a fancy way of saying, hey, when I say something like gross profit, can we make sure that the calculation when I say gross profit into an LLM is agreed upon across the whole company? So gross profit equals, and then you have you know, the calculation that makes the most sense for the company. You can set that up at a company-wide layer. Having a semantic layer makes everybody talk the same language, and it gets everybody to be able to pull the right data and the right metrics fairly easily. And you build that through building a skill within your ChatGPT, your Claude, or what have you. It's awesome to be able to say, hey, everybody now is pointing to the same number at the same time when previously we all had different dashboards that may or may not align. So build a semantic layer, and Claude and ChatGPT and any system can help you do that. You're not on your own there. But really, it gets when you get up to speed on this, you're going to want to have a data architect or data professional who can help you uh, implement this data foundation and keep it running. They're expensive. I would suggest sharing a centralized architect across the portfolio or working out ways that you can contract with a specialist to really get your system humming. We've got one internally, and we also contract with a BluWave partner as well for the work here as well, and it's paid back. The ROI is off the charts for this particular part of AI enablement.
I think these are all really good points as we talked about. This is the unfun part that so many people skip. And maybe James, I'll ask you, like, one of the questions we get asked a lot from a lot of PE firms and their portcos is like, hey, can I just connect everything up to Claude or just plug it into my Microsoft instance? Isn't that good enough? Why isn't that good enough?
I mean, it's better than nothing, so I wouldn't stop people from doing that. I think what happens, where real magic happens, is where you can synthesize different data sets across different um, input systems. So, for example, we use Gong at BluWave, and we're able to track some of the conversations we have with clients, and then match that up against Salesforce data, and say, oh, this is what the client's looking at, and then potentially scrape the web for more information and insight about what challenges those clients may have, and then finally put that all together in an email that goes to the client that's highly specialized and highly personalized based on all that data. That can all happen when you have a centralized warehouse like a Databricks or a Snowflake in our case, at much greater speed. And we can set up the table. You can set up the tables so that we all understand what um, each value means from a business viewpoint in the data warehouse. So you get much more speed and accuracy with that.
And I think that's a great point. That goes to the semantic layer. And what you're doing on the semantic layer is you're just describing to the large language model, this is what this field means. And you're doing it across a whole host of fields. If you're just connecting everything in, then the LLM has to figure it all out. And you're going to get different answers almost every single time from different people. So you don't get a commonality of answers. And then it's also going to limit your ability to do some of the really cool stuff that we'll talk about in a bit in terms of like what's to come. And so to James' point, you should connect it in the beginning if you don't have another choice. But if you're playing to win and you're playing chess, not checkers, and you're playing, 3, 4 steps down the board, which you need to. I mean, this is I think, most exciting and daunting history, period in business, and certainly my, multi-decade experience of what's going on. But you got to play to win here. And so I think this data foundation is one that's really, really important. And so if you don't have a choice, I would agree to connect things up. But if you're playing to win over time and you want to take it as far as you can go, don't skip the data. All right. The third thing that we can do is start putting in AI tools right now. And then also build tools. So what's your perspective on this, James?
Yeah, so much like we can roll out a Claude or a ChatGPT without any data hooked up, we can also use other AI-enabled tools from day one. So, with document AI summary tools, like things like the transcription tools you find in Granola or Zoom or Firefly, um, you can use those now and start getting real value if you have a company that does a lot of calls and wants to share that intelligence in a company-wide brain. Um, do the plugins from Claude into Microsoft Excel, PowerPoint, Word. Just save yourself hours of work from using the AI tools that are off the shelf and can handle things like expense automation and sales calls assistance, for example. There's a world of AI tools out there. I wouldn't spend forever trying to work out the best one. I just find one that works and you have trust in and has other people, recommending it to you, and go with that and see if it works. And if it doesn't, you can. It's not a lot of switching costs in these, so it's pretty straightforward to get started with some of the other AI tools beyond just an LLM.
And
Um,
what are some of the use cases that like for these single bounded tools? And by bounded tool, we mean like something you can just use. You don't really even need to connect it to other systems or other data.
Yeah, so I mean, a good one is the Claude plugin into PowerPoint, for example. If you have a presentation to create and you've already been having a whole bunch of conversations with your enterprise Claude, giving it a lot of context and it has all the access to your data, you can build a PowerPoint presentation in a few minutes, and it can get you to not just the starting point, but like to almost all the way to the end, and you're having to tweak a few things here and there. We took our design system at BluWave and put that as a skill in our Claude tool. So it not only does it develop a PowerPoint, it also makes it look branded, and the look and feel maintains over time. We built that so that within our Claude system, the design system is always there. So everybody in your business is now using the right branded templates, and it all looks like we're a united company to the client. That's the sort of thing you can do with AI and an enterprise-wide Claude LLM system that you could never do before. There was always a concern of most brand teams and design teams internally. That all changes with a company-wide LLM that has all the data hooked up and has access to things like our design system, for example.
And I'll add a point on the design thing. The question is like, how do you actually do that? The best trick that I think we all do here is when you want to do something, you ask Claude or ChatGPT how to do it. And so the way I'll do those things is I'll say, hey, I want to build, if I were to do this, I would say, hey, I want you to help me build a prompt that will help me build a brand design skill. And then it'll ask you ask me all the questions you need for that. And then ChatGPT or Claude understands ChatGPT or Claude better than anyone else in the world. And it will ask you all the things it needs. It will build the prompt. And then you say, okay, now build the skill for me. And then it'll take you through it, the prompt to build the skill, and then it will build the skill. And then you just put the skill into your Claude, and then it's there forever. So, as a little bit of a behind the curtains look, we actually had our design skill build this whole deck. And the amazing thing is, our design director is constantly overworked, right? And he's the one who built this. So now it gives him a lot of leverage to actually thinking and acting and being more strategic about the business versus being caught in the machine of it. And so this was something that James and I were able to build together, just in a conversational way without having to encumber hours of someone's time. A year ago, that didn't exist. And so I think that's something that's really, really kind of amazing. The other kind of just practical life hacks that we'll use here is like document summarization. Hey, summarize this doc, you get a 100-page deck that comes through. It's great at legal. It still use your lawyers, but we'll often use like first reviews if for that, and it saves us, frankly, a lot of dollars where we'll do a first cut up and then it doesn't require as much legal work afterwards. I'll double tap on the plugins. Make sure you put your Claude plugins if you're using Claude into Excel, PowerPoint, Word. It will do things, particularly on the modeling as an independent sponsor. It will check your models. It will build your models. It'll give you like so much force multiplication in your organization. You won't know what to do with yourself, and suddenly you'll find ways to fill more time. The other thing that I think is really helpful is note transcription. It's what we will do. I personally use a tool called Granola. Granola doesn't it transcribes it, so it's not recording the audio in the video, and all it does is transcribe it. So you don't need to, frankly, on every call have this beaming red light that makes everyone uncomfortable. It's really all it's doing is taking notes. I plug that into my Claude, and so it's able to capture all my notes. And so there's just a lot of practical things as an independent sponsor that will give you tremendous lift, not only to your firm, but to your portfolio companies. And so from just a practical perspective, I think there's a ton that you can do. And then as you think about even really in your portcos, you're going to get huge lift with like AP and expense automation, sales call assistance, sales effectiveness tools. Those are really areas that you're going to find kind of instant plug-in ability and really quick ROI that does not require your data layer. Now, James, what can you do once you have a data layer in? What's kind of the next frontier on these AI tools when you can actually build something or eventually be able to buy things off the shelf?
Yeah, well, I will say in my entire career here working with AI, it's it never gets better than when the business owners and the business people who have that domain knowledge over the last 10, 20, 30 years as they built the business understand AI, right? So when they get trained up and they're coming at you with, hey, is this a good idea? And you say, yes, that's a great idea. That's where the real magic happens. And that's why the 1, 2, 3 steps here lead up to really what we call enterprise tools at scale. And what I'm getting at here is things that your company can build that no one else can. So, for example, at BluWave, we're looking at ways that we can have a shared experience with our clients real time on sales calls, where both the client and our expert group are working through and trying to, in real time, capture the needs using AI and then be able to find recommendations of the exact right person and professional from our network, which is huge, by the way. So, being able to work together on a real-time call with clients is something that only BluWave can do in this particular example because we have that data, we've hooked it all up, we've got access to the network, and that's coming very soon to our experience. And there just has to be similar experiences across any portfolio company. Once you start setting up that foundation of data, training, AI, access to AI tools, your companies will build something amazing from that.
Just having watched the metamorphosis here as we've adopted these things is unbelievable. And what James is describing is having this kind of all-knowing, super-powered employee who now has instant access to everything that's ever been published in the history of the world, as well as all of the data within BluWave. And then for BluWave, the way that we enact this and enable this is combined with human judgment and white glove concierge service. And so one of the big things that we try to use here is the word and versus or. Too many times people use this kind of like binary or choice in life and business. You're going to be this or that. And the way that we're enabling it is you're going to have the power of the AI, you're going to have the judgment of the human. And what we're seeing happen here as we get to these levels is the satisfaction of our teams going way up because they get to think about the strategic stuff, the business stuff, the operating things. But like the hands on the keyboard, like the production stuff is being taken more and more off individuals' plates. And then what we're seeing is we're able to iterate so much faster than we ever were. And so like one of the things that we'll do is we have a question during one of our leadership team meetings. And we'll just, we'll normally what we would say is go to our CFO and say, okay, can you guys pull the data? Let's get an answer. And then let's talk about this 2 or 3 weeks from now. 2 or 3 weeks from now, they'd come and say, oh, actually that data is probably, let's look at this other way. And then 2 or 3 weeks would go. And I can feel like people nodding on the other side of this webinar here, because that's been my whole life experience. Now we do it in real time in our leadership team meetings or in our individual group meetings. And we're figuring it out in real time. So our ability to iterate is so much faster. All of this can be done and enacted within your companies in single digit months. And we'll get more into that, but just continue to think about this. These are things that everyone can and should do, to your benefit or to your peril. All right. So James, this is the other part that's not as fun, but so essential. Can you talk about why governance matters?
And just before you do, James, for those who've just joined, we have a Q&A in not too long. So please do start posting questions in the bottom bar in the question box, and we'll get to them when we get to that part of the section. But James, over to you on governance.
Yeah, so governance is the thing that helps you move quickly, but move quickly with safety, which maybe you need for your driving, Sean. But anyway, the first thing to do is the AI usage policy. So it's important that while you're training up everybody in your team that's got access to the system, that they understand what they can and can't do with the AI tools available. And really, if there's one big rule there is when you're using company data, use the company AI, approved company AI tools. So you really don't want somebody internally using their external free ChatGPT or something on your data, because that could mean that ChatGPT or other systems can start training your data, and you eventually are giving away your most precious assets, which include your data. So really make sure that anyone with access to the AI system understands the AI usage policy, and that you have proof that they've gone through that and really understand it. We actually use the AI system to double check, triple check that our team members understand the need to keep data in-house. So with user rights, you need to assign data usage rights to employees depending on what they need. So when I give all the access to all the data to everybody internally, we provide it as needed, and we can set that up on the back end with Snowflake in particular. It allows a granularity of providing what data to which employee. We also monitor and log how data is being used by employees. So we guard against large data exfiltration by limiting how much data anybody can take out of the system at one time. And we also have a real-time monitoring of that, which would alert a team as to, hey, there's been an excess use of data for some reason. And we just ask the question, hey, what you doing? Because most of the time, almost all the time, it's a business need or a business reason, and it's a-okay. But it's just good to have that monitoring on top. The agents themselves, so a lot of the times the AI systems will go off and do things or want to go off and do things. We need to make sure that those things are within the bounds of the business needs, and as they build out outreach for you, make sure that those outreaches to clients or service providers or whoever is being monitored in a scalable way. This is all on top of a healthy cybersecurity system that we should all have in place anyway, to make sure that we keep malware out and keep ransomware at bay, that sort of thing. And lastly, the change management is essential. We can train everybody up once, and that's great. But every new person who joins the company also needs to go through the same training. And as the systems evolve, we need to have micro trainings along the way to say, hey, we've added new data to the data set, or we've enabled a new integration with Claude, for example. So that ongoing change is important.
I think these are also essential, and I'll make 2 points here. One, your most important asset right now in this future world, or one of your most important assets, is your data. It's your data moat. Those who win tomorrow are the companies that can use AI and the large language models, which gives you access to the sum total of human knowledge and a data set that no one else has. And that's your own company's data. We're regularly having calls where they're finding out where large portions of the portfolio companies' teams are using personal AI and putting the company's data into it. You have just seeded your moat and trained the whole world on what used to be special for you. And so it's incredibly important that you lock down those and turn off training. Otherwise, that great pea soup of AI knows everything about your business. The other thing around change management, we have a podcast that we do called Karma School of Business, where we bring in professionals from private equity to kind of teach the PE way and how to build businesses. We have a guest coming up, not to steal our thunder, but it used to be you'd have to tell people 3 times, 4 times. The growing research is showing you need to repeat core messages more than 20 times because of all the noise in the world. So we have a line here or a name here that we call in our office, we call you got to be a chief repeater. And so just reassert how important all this AI stuff is within your organizations and be chief repeaters. All right, there's a bit of an eye chart. James, if we kind of work to keep on schedule here, what's the core takeaway on this?
Yeah, just the idea is you got to start somewhere, so you may as well start everywhere. I'm normally one to do one thing at a time well, but you'll be amazed by how quickly you set up an LLM, and then everybody's going to want to put the data in there. So you're going to need a semantic layer after that. So what happens is this project manages itself because your internal customers start asking for these things one by one. And underneath it all is the governance and risk mitigation that you've got to keep an eye on. So just start is a great place to start.
Yes, it's once again, it's and not or. It's get your LLMs going, your data going, your governance going, these tools. And then what you're going to find within 12 months, you're going to be able to build Jarvis. Actually, you should be able to build Jarvis, which we're going to show you next in 6 months if you get going now. And then you're going to build what James shared about kind of like this AI powered employee, within 12 months. But the longer you wait, the more behind you are. Okay, so now we're going to do a quick demo to show you kind of how our Jarvis works. And this is a casual term. Don't tell the folks at Marvel. We use it, kind of in kind of casual jest. If you've seen those movies about this all-knowing robot that connects all the data and does all this work for you. But that's essentially what our Jarvis does for us. And so if I pull up Claude here, and I'm going to share it. Okay. So hopefully that is showing on people's screens. Okay. So essentially what I will do and what we'll do is I'm often curious about the world. And the world, I use the LLM, they know exactly what the world's going. The great thing about BluWave is I'll ask it, hey, what's going on in the industry right now? Because if private equity is doing it, we should probably be doing it ourselves too. It's kind of a great thing. And by the way, we publish all this data in different forms in our quarterly reports as a way of democratizing the BluWave way, the private equity way. And so I asked it, like, hey, what are the big trends going on PE? And it's got AI advisory. Now more than 10% of every calls we get. That used to be nothing. And then commercial diligence, interim, ops, all these things are like top things that PE is doing right now in the last 90 days. And then what I'm always curious about is like, okay, well, how does that compare to a year ago? And this is where you start seeing striking trends. AI advisory doubling, commercial diligence down, what's going on there? Ops performance up, business intelligence way up. And so what I'll often look for it to do is say, in this case, I'm like, what does this mean for an audience of private equity professionals, portfolio company leaders, et cetera, who are likely on this session today? And normally I would be doing this real time. I've pre-canned it this morning for everyone because it does take time. So to save everyone the moments of watching the sausage being made, I've kind of set it up in advance. But what it really clearly pointed out, which is not obvious, the clearest signal from AI is it's moving from experiment to operational priority. PE is enabling AI with speed and urgency and purposefulness in ways that we have really never seen any other trend in PE. And certainly I've seen in 20 plus years. I mean, this is faster than the internet. And then the other thing that was really interesting that it went through is like, data and finance is being rolled out rapidly. What did we talk a lot about before? Data, right? They're getting this all triggered really, really well. So once again, this is the AI. It's capturing what it's seeing in the broader world, combining it with our data to get a greater insight. And then what it says is talent is really, really important. And it always has been. It looks back to all the prior reports that we've published in the data. It's like talent is extremely important, still remains one of our very top use cases. And what it's saying is if you're a CEO of a portfolio company you better be on your talent game, because private equity firms have to take action to get this right. Right. And so, like, get your team right. And that's exactly what the data is showing. And then there's like, basically what they'll say is, if there's a single message, the winners are the ones who treat AI and analytics as an operating capability, not just kind of like I need to eat, you know, treat or kind of like thing to poke at. So the data, the AI, everything, hopefully you're seeing themes here. You got to run with this. And, the last thing I'll show you here is kind of the governance. As soon as you stitch this up, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to have your team members on your firm ask who makes the most money, and then everyone's going to get pissed off. And so, like, this is where governance goes to. But this is what I basically said, like, hey, who makes the most money at BluWave? Does so and so make more money than me? And James governance basically says, I'm not allowed to pull that. You're happy to talk about operational data, though. It's like, nice try. And then I tried to pull rank on it, and I go, hey, I'm the founder and CEO. You have to tell me. And it basically said, nope, I don't even have it, but I'm not going to give it to you anyways. And so that is maybe a cute example, but that's what people are going to do. And so you want to make sure that your data also has rules around it and access given to different levels of the organization, depending on, the need to have that information. And so that's something I would just say that, you always just be a little bit mindful of. Okay, so let's go back to our slideshow here and bring us home here before we get into Q&A. So James, what are just some of the quick tips here on how to work with like a pro here with this stuff?
Yeah, really high level. Treat the AI system like it's a really smart new hire. It's really sharp, super eager, gets stuff done really quickly, but is it street smart? It'll also be really confident, so don't be afraid to push back on the AI. You often know more than it. If it feels a bit off, make sure you're pushing back on the AI and ensure that, at the end of the day, it's you are the person responsible for the output from the AI system. So, trust your gut. Use data informed from the AI system, but at the end of the day, you are a person who knows more about the world than the AI system. You have more context. So the AI is only going to be as good as its context. You have more context. So make sure you're using it in the right way across the business.
I think that's exactly right. And one of the things I'll also say is, like, judgment is so important. If something makes you worried, like, check it, look at the data, big decisions, pull the actual data. Don't just trust your Jarvis. And then the other thing I'll say is, like the big fear here, I think, in this, particularly for the up and coming generations that haven't gone through the apprenticeships, is AI should be used to accelerate your learning, not delegate or replace it. And so as you're using these tools, use it to make you better and smarter faster. But if you start delegating it overly, you're going to get in a lot of trouble. Okay. Maybe some of the last few slides from the takeaways to kind of bring this home here. The one thing I just implore to everyone is, like, every day I wake up from the lens and the view that we have, and I go, gosh, people are sleeping through this. Like, they don't even know what's here or what's coming. So, like, the message that I would share is, please get started now. By the time you get to kind of that phase 3 that we talked about of these AI enterprise tools, what's going to be available then will dwarf what's available. It's going to get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, likely, right? And so it's going to get better and better, but what the biggest cost is doing nothing. So if you do nothing, you're further and further behind. And just know, like, there's all this talk about, about job loss, et cetera. I don't believe it's true, because what's happening is your competitors are acting too. And so all of these benefits are getting normalized and put into a competitive matrix. And so know that your competitors are doing this and start running towards this now. And as James pointed out, you can start anywhere. Just take that first step forward. You can start in your data. You can start with your LLM. You can start with your tools, but get it moving. And then you'll find with each step, you're going to learn a lot. You're going to get more comfortable, and then you're going to go faster as you show, like, little victories. All right, James, how do you activate this?
Yeah, like I think really important is to bring the right skill set and mindset to the organization. So you want somebody who is a thought partner for you, along with the tool itself. Somebody's you know more talk than walk, has actually done this and learned the lessons along the way from different places. Bring in PE grade experts. So like we want people who've been working with PE companies, understand the needs of portfolio companies and what they're up against, and be able to understand those pressures and have measurable ROI. And look, I mean, it's a plug here, but BluWave does that. So it takes a lot of the search um, questions that you'll have off of your plate, so you can concentrate on the business. So that's what I would recommend. Is like there is a lot of people who have used to be data analysts 15 minutes ago and now are AI experts. That's what you don't want, right? So we really want someone who's got a track record, who's worked before. And AI wasn't invented 3 years ago. AI has been around since I think 1956 with the Dartmouth conference there. It's got a long track record. Yes, it's coming to light now in the last three years since ChatGPT made the space go vertical. But yeah, it's been around a while. So find someone who's learned the lessons.
Yeah, I'll be a little bit provocative just on this is our business, right? This world right now, just like it was like when the internet came out, it's the people who are running into this are, and this is a little bit provocative, but there's so many charlatans and like TikTok influencers out there who are doing these things and saying, I'm an expert, and then wanting to like put agents all around your business and like be careful. And so one of the things that has made us successful, and like I said, I don't mean this to sound like a commercial, but one of the things that has made us successful where we've grown dramatically with little capital need is we kind of do what PE does, and we've used BluWave on ourselves. And so one of the things I say to activate these things is, and really how we built our company and how I did it when I was in PE, is when you're doing something new, outsource it to a proven party who vets people more than anyone in the world. You all, the private equity industry cannot lose money. And so that's what our whole ecosystem is built on, is that kind of trusted reputation and standard of excellence that surpasses most. And so one, outsource it. Two, learn from it. See how it works. Don't try to recreate a wheel, right? It's like these people are going to know what they're doing, learn from it. And then as soon as you figure out what you need, insource it. And so it's outsource, learn, insource, outsource, learn, insource. That's how we built our whole company here in pretty dramatic fashion without a lot of capital need. And then the don't hate the player, hate the game part is when you outsource it, when you're taking your business to market, since it's a one-time expense, it's an add back. So you can do a straight line. I don't build a business for that in mind, but it's not a bad side benefit. And so I would just say like that's something that's going to help you with this get going faster and adopt it with more speed and certainty. And at the risk of sounding commercial, this is exactly what we do for most of the PE industry. All right. James, what do we have for people here?
Yeah, so a couple of gifts. We will share out a deeper presentation as well on this presentation with a lot of the background, um, and also the AI use case guide here that we spent a whole bunch of time putting together. It's really informative. And what I'm also really excited about is if you have a Claude instance, you can go to that website with a Claude connection and download a skill and an MCP connector in the background. And what will happen is BluWave can be in your Claude. So if you need talent and you need a thought partner of, hey, I've got this project going, all I need is the right service provider to help me out. Claude will work with you and identify the right project framing, and then we'll get right on that and start working on your project right from your Claude. I think this is going to be the future of a lot of different experiences where we're working in the workflow tool of choice for clients rather than you know the old communication methods of email and phone. So it's if you want to taste the future, that BluWave Bat phone is a really good idea.
And all this is going to be integrated into your Claudes, your ChatGPTs, and eventually your agents are going to do this for you. And that's not too far away. And so I think the BluWave bat phone is really cool because it also help you kind of scope out your need in a way that we've kind of proven out how to do across thousands and thousands of projects with the most discriminating high standard business builders in the world. So it's a cool, I think, add-on. So please take advantage of both of those, um, and uh, and uh, and I think you'll find benefit from them. Okay, so we have some questions here.
We do, we do. Sean, James, huge thank you. You did not disappoint, and that was a very rich 45 minutes. Thank you. My big takeaway here is inaction is not an option as it relates to AI. And for independent sponsors, what a gift it is as a lean organization to build institutional grade capability, but without increasing headcount. You can do so much more with so much less. And a lot of the stuff that James and Sean talked through today are things that we've done at Access Holdings to punch above our weight there too. Building a data strategy, a data warehouse with Snowflake, portfolio analytics that sit on top and really allows you to manage your portfolio companies real time, no surprises, understanding everything all the way down to store, product, employee level data, and having actionable insights over the top. It's a new world, and that really does benefit independent sponsors. I want to ask one quick question that I wanted to pick out from some of the input we got as people registered. A good number of people asked, I think about a lot of the work that they're doing is investment professionals, specifically surrounding Excel and financial models. What's realistic today, and where do you think investment professionals should still be careful as it relates to financial modeling and AI?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think it's going to be a question kind of for the age. If you know what you're doing and you've gone through these apprenticeships, it's a great assistant. And so the way we'll use it is we'll use it to check our models. It's amazing at finding checks. We'll have it do pilot project models for us. So the Claude plugin, if you're using Claude, it does amazing things. Even I started off as an investment banking analyst and I was nearly 20 years in PE. I thought I was pretty good with Excel. And I'll just ask it what it wants, I'll basically say what I want it to do and type in the question, and it will just start creating all these things and use all these formulas that I never knew existed. Now, the thing that saves me is I've seen enough, and been battle tested enough through just like banging my head against the wall at 3 a.m. trying to get a model out that I can see where it's gone off. And so I think the biggest challenge is going to be for this up and coming generation where they haven't learned the foundations and have the personal judgment to understand what's wrong. But I will tell you, the Claude plugin will they're training it on how financial models are built. I'd encourage you to play with it and just go there and say, hey, I want to build a model. It will surprise you. The plugins will do great things. It is great, particularly if you know what you're doing and you can direct it what you want to do, and you have some pattern recognition in your brain when you go, that doesn't seem right. And so from a financial analysis standpoint, I think it's incredibly valuable. I think it becomes even more valuable when it can go, and not to kind of continue to beat this drum, but when then it can go into your systems and pull the data. And we actually use a separate tool to do the pull of the data because it's really quite inexpensive, and we can give you there's a couple of tools that do that. So we'll pull the data in probably more prescriptively for an Excel analysis. We use Jarvis as a more of a pilot analysis point, but the depth with which you're going to do things, the ability how you're going to be able to run like things like regressions and deeper data science. And I took statistics in business school, but other than R square and knowing that there's a word called heteroscedasticity, I see I've even mispronounced it. That's as far as my memory goes. And so you can do some really cool advanced data science as well that you're not going to recall. Sam, is that in service of the answer?
Yeah, it's perfect. And I want to move quickly over to some of the questions we've got in the questions box. And Sean, James, I want to ask you guys quick fire. We're going to get through as many of these as we can. And Lalit Kumar gets all the points for most questions asked. First one is a very good one, actually. When a service provider in the value creation space comes to BluWave, how do you evaluate their service? How do I know that what I get from BluWave is be the best of the best? And that's been my
Yeah.
experience, but what's the methodology?
So for each use case, we have an extensive list of questions that we know are signals of value and competency. And so one, we're asking them detailed questions about how they do things, with whom they do them, how often they do them, what are the volumes in the different service providers. So a firm is not a firm. They usually have different aisles, and some are better and some are worse. And so one, we're interviewing them in terms of what they do. Two, we reference them. They have to have multiple private equity firms vouch for them. So there's a social trust element to this. Three, we track how things occur afterwards. And so if the service provider does excellent work, it's likely they're going to see more from us. If the service provider does poor work, that poor work is discoverable by more than 500 PE firms forever. And so there's a carrot to working with us, but there's also a recourse if someone's kind of faking it until they make it. All of this in service of really our job is to make two people successful. It's the PE firm or their portfolio company or the independent company or public company and the service provider. And we put them in a position where they work well together and consistently. And it's powered by these network effects that make it all work. And so if we didn't have the volume and the ecosystem on both sides, none of this would work. But together it works probably better than anything. I think anyone could probably do what we do to a certain degree. It would take you months to probably, we do in minutes what people probably take 6 weeks, and you don't have like maybe the social recourse that we do, and that's how it all works so well and it's been so popular.
Awesome. I'm going to ask a question from Richard Veal. He says, getting started, we are evaluating creating a tool or solving a specific problem or improving a specific work stream using AI to help evangelize, get buy-in from the portfolio company teams. What are your thoughts on that approach versus broader implementation outlined on slide 11 of this presentation?
I would definitely go with broader implementation first because I'll tell you why. Because I've been there and done this on this exact thing a few times. Let's say you're successful with the tool of solving a specific problem. That's awesome. That'll be great. And maybe five or six or seven or eight people who are involved in that project in that company will think that's fantastic. But what you'll miss from a broader implementation is making everybody a AI superstar. And then all of a sudden, everybody's behind it. They're demanding things from you. They're pointing out the best use cases across the company. It's a multiplier. That's how I would go with, as we laid out, go with a broad approach first, and then you'll find 1,000 different use cases, and the buy-in will flow from there. Your mileage may vary, but that's my lived experience a few times.
And what I would add to that, I fully agree with that. In the human nature standpoint, make sure that you're getting your early adopters to kind of proselytize it, and then have your early adopters start working with the laggards. Every company is going to have those, every portfolio company. Same thing that we see across PE firms with multiple portfolio companies. Try it first with your most adoptive, like innovative, forward-looking portco first. Have them do something and then have them strut to the other portfolio companies. And then everyone else is going to say like, whoa, what? I don't want to be left behind. And so gamify this competition element of it to make it work. And that's how we see it work across portfolios time and time again. But don't dawdle. This is not something where you want to wait, but be mindful of getting your early adopters come in and then have them preach the good word about how great this is, whether it's within your individual company or portfolio wide.
One last question, very, very quick answer required because people are on the hour. Lalit says, James, you mentioned building the semantic layer as a skill inside ChatGPT or Claude. For a standalone portfolio company that doesn't have the ability to build across shared architecture, how far can they get with that self-built approach before the warehouse and a dedicated resource building this stuff?
At that scale, I probably recommend, I mean, like I recommend doing both, right? So I think at that scale, you're probably looking at wanting to bring in a dedicated data architect or at least a consulting uh, data architect and then build out your data lake. The semantic layer can be a separate like conversation, a separate effort, and you just start defining what certain business terms mean and then building that as a skill across ChatGPT and Claude, and you'll get a long way before ever having to stand up a data lake. So I think the answer is to do both and get both going, particularly at that scale of company.
And if you have a company that's maybe lower on the tech side where you don't have developers and things like that, I always recommend kind of what I said earlier, like maybe rent it first if this is brand new to you. And so what you can, I mean, so we use a group that is within our ecosystem on ourselves, even though we have a dedicated data architect, in part because our data architect now is so overly demanded, he can't keep up. But what I'd say is if you bring in someone who you can rent, they're going to get the base level and fast, and then you're going to very quickly learn what is specific to your organization. And then you can very more seamlessly decide what to insource and what to keep outsourced. And you'll probably iterate on this. But if you're more technically capable, then I think James is exactly right, where you can say, hey, that'll plug in seems but I will say our data architect is the most busy person in our company and the most like sought after right now.
Yeah, that does not surprise me. Guys, we've hit the hour. A huge thanks to Sean and James, and an even bigger thanks to those who joined us. This is the first of many different topics we'll cover with our partner BluWave. It's all in the name of value creation and institutionalizing independent sponsors without the need for all of that expense and architecture. So we're all on the same mission to further the independent sponsor community. Thank you so much. I know you'll all be rooting for England out there, who are going to go on pitch soon. Appreciate you doing so, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Jay. Thanks, Sam. Thanks,
Yeah.
James.
Thanks, everyone.